right, welcome in an Equinox edition of BloodHorse Monday. Louie, Rabaut, Sean Collins hanging out with you. Sean, very, very natural scape. Me, very blank scene behind me. Probably need something up there at some point, Sean. But look at you taking in nature. Are you somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania?
I don't know if it's the middle of Pennsylvania. It's the eastern part of Pennsylvania. But yes, I'm actually in my hometown, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Shout out to Bethlehem. Having just been at the Pennsylvania Derby this past weekend and heading back to Kentucky tomorrow for Lucas Classic Week at Churchill Downs. So that's where I am at right now. It's been a fun week. Got to go to my high school football team.
How about that?
Past week with my best friend from back home. So good little homecoming week for me this week. I always love doing that for Pennsylvania Derby time.
There you go. Little high school football from Sean Collins. We'll break down that game later on, but first horse racing.
42-0 Liberty.
Really? How about that? Okay, never mind. We'll break. We don't need to. There's no need to analyze that game.
There's not much to break down. They were playing a school that I don't think showed up to the game.
The meetings will continue until morale improves at Sean's high school. But of course, over the week. One of the regional derbies over the weekend, a man that we'll talk to it in a couple of minutes, is trainer Brad Cox. He had Disco Time win the St. Louis Derby. I was a little surprised to see so many horses running in that St. Louis Derby for $50,000 less than the Bourbon stakes there at Churchill Downs. But hey, Disco Time gets it done. Solid field there. The non-Pennsylvania Derby of the weekend. Thought it was a good race, and I thought, frankly, a good spot to put Disco Time in. He showed up for sure.
Yeah, and he went straight to the lead and took it the whole way. But it was good to see him back. I remember there was a lot of hype on this horse back in Kentucky Derby prep season. Yeah. And then he had to go on the sidelines after he won the Lecomte Stakes. So it was nice to see him bounce back so well. We're looking at, this division. We've been talking, and we're going to get into this division the way it unfolded this weekend, how you really have the big three. You don't necessarily have that horse who's behind them that could potentially take a shot at the big three. And so maybe this is the horse. He's the one that I believe he's still undefeated, isn't he? Yeah, perfect 4 for 4. And he was impressive back when he was on the Derby Trail earlier in the year. He was impressive coming back here in this spot at Fairmount Park. Nice to see them have such a big weekend there at the St. Louis Derby. It looked like a lot of fun. I tried to work out to where I could do both that in the Pennsylvania Derby. It didn't work out this year.
Of course you did, yes. Of course you did. Pennsylvania Derby, the undercard to the Saturday racing there at Parks. You were there on site. Of course, Cotillion and Pennsylvania Derby both on the card there. Baeza does win the Pennsylvania Derby. Frankly, far and away the best horse in that race there,
no question.
Sean, and really did, I think, put his holding on the third horse in this 3-year-old division. I think that if you and I were voting for Eclipse Awards today, it would be a very easy vote for 3-year-old male. It would be Sovereignty, then Journalism, and then Baeza. Do you largely agree with me?
Yes, I completely agree with you. I think we have a rare year where I think we can definitively say who the top 3 horses in this division are, and on top of that, we can definitively say which position they all rank in those top 3. They ran Sovereignty, Journalism, Baeza in that order in both the Derby and the Belmont. Anytime Journalism runs against 3-year-olds and Sovereignty's not there, he wins. Anytime Baeza runs up against not one of those two, he wins. As long as they keep doing that, I mean, you can't change what that order is. We know, I think I've mentioned on the show a couple times, and I think I did last week as well. A lot of trainers, even before Baeza finally broke through and got this win, a lot of other trainers that had some of the top 3-year-olds would constantly kind of refer to him as being one of the big 3 in this division. He finally has that qualification to prove it. He's got his grade 1 win. Shout out to Puka, the amazing broodmare.
Unbelievable. Yes.
Yeah. That has now had 3 consecutive grade 1 winners. That is pretty incredible. If you haven't been watching the show the whole time we've been doing it this year, go back to before the Belmont when we got to talk to Robert Clay, who was the breeder of all 3 of these horses, Mage, Dornoch, and Baeza. But a big win for him. He was really impressive. And I also, looking at the way that some of the horses that were supposed to be major contenders in these races ran,
Right.
I don't know what I think about the track. I'm not sure every horse handled the track, which is why I think Baeza was maybe even more impressive, is because he handled it and he ran a pretty good time over it as well. And it seemed to be one that, like, some horses like Gosger, I know he kind of had a little bit of traffic at one point on the far turn, but he didn't really run to his best. You look at the Cotillion, Good Cheer, Lucara, Scottish Lassie, all did not really run to their best. You look at the Gallant Bob, you have Barnes and Donut God, who didn't run to their best. So I think the track was not to everyone's liking, which in my opinion made it even more impressive that Baeza was able to overcome all that.
Yeah, Baeza, of course, was third in the Kentucky Derby behind Journalism and Sovereignty. Very rare that our Eclipse Awards would follow 1, 2, 3 for the Kentucky Derby, but I imagine for many voters, that will be the case. You mentioned the Cotillion, and you mentioned those that did not win, but frankly, a horse that you and I got to see win the Indiana Oaks turns around and wins the Cotillion, and I gave her out as my top pick on the Horse Racing Happy Hour this past weekend. And look, I think with Clicquot, once in a while you get a filly like this, Sean, that is a little bit later in the development cycle, right? So she wasn't ready for a Kentucky Oaks, something like that. But you were there in Indianapolis with me, and she's just such a professional. I made the joke that you probably could have set off a firecracker in the winner's circle, and she would have been like, okay, whatever. I won the race. We're good. Let's go eat and we're fine and get out of here, whatever. And I think once in a while there's incredible value in that, because what you just said is true. Let's say the track isn't playing to everybody. Let's say that the travel is a problem. Let's say the blah, 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 all X, Y, Z. It seems to not matter for her, right? Now we got one that can travel. She wins at different places, won at Churchill, won at Horseshoe, now won at Parks. I'm very hopeful, frankly, after a mile and a 16th where she looked really good and really capable, that they'll send her to the distaff. I'm really hoping that we'll see her at Del Mar at the beginning of November. What did you think of her performance? How did that Cotillion shake out for you?
Yeah, well, I think she definitely earned the right to try to give that race a shot. She looked pretty good this week, and she looked good all week leading up to it. I got here on Wednesday. I think the first day I saw her was Thursday, and those 2 days leading up to it, she looked amazing. Brendan Walsh, sometimes he could keep his thoughts on his horses a little close to the vest, but he was very much advertising how much he thought about this filly leading into the race. I think, we've been looking at this 3-year-old filly division. We're not seeing the top horses from the spring in Good Cheer and Lucara.
Yeah.
We're not seeing them complete the year here in the second half. And so this division is wide open for, a filly who is developing in this later half of the year to maybe jump up and maybe even look at stealing the divisional honors here. And this is a really good filly. I'm very hopeful for her future. She looks like she's going to be pretty competitive. But the division itself, you look at it, I think Nitrogen is still obviously the clear front runner after the Alabama, and also just given the fact that she's run so well on both surfaces. But I think this is really going to come down to if all the big 3-year-old fillies end up in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, I think the divisional honors here could really just come down to who runs the best in the Distaff, whether it be winning or whether it be running second or third to a horse like Torpedo Anna or Dorf Vader or something like that. It'll be interesting to see how this division shakes out when it comes to the voting.
You mentioned trainer Brendan Walsh, and we had Gosger obviously in the Pennsylvania Derby as well. And I think many people were hoping it was going to be a bit of a coronation for him. I think people felt bad about the journalism rallies in both the Preakness and in the Haskell as far as his outcomes. I've never seen a trainer just shrug and wonder what the heck else they could do more than Brendan Walsh after the Haskell. I've never seen it in my life. I've never seen anyone just throw up their hands like, what else are we supposed to do? That effort on Saturday, worried about the horse, or do you think it might be related to the track conditions there, Park?
Well, there was one point on the far turn where I think it was actually a stable meet when David of Athens was backing up, where he did kind of have to check, and he was he kind of had to reroute a little bit. That probably cost him quite a bit of momentum. I actually happened to be standing right next to his connections as they were watching the race, and they all reacted to that moment, which is what called my attention to it as I was watching it live. It's hard for me to, I'm not concerned about him going forward. The track I did hear kind of several comments about, it was deep, it was hard. I could see where there's quite a few horses who might not have liked the way the surface was. And a horse like him, if you do get stopped at the point where he got stopped. Now, to be fair, at the point he got stopped, Baeza had already blown past him. Right. So I don't think he was going to really be a threat to beat Baeza in this spot. But when I'm looking at overall where he ended up finishing and the run that he put forward, I'm going to give him a pass. I'm probably going to give a pass to, maybe Good Cheer Lucara as well, because this was a track that I don't think was going to be to everyone's liking. Okay. And I'll wait to see. I'm going to draw a line through this race for pretty much all of them that didn't run to their best when they come back into the entry box next time.
We'll talk about Immersive in the Seneca overnight with trainer Brad Cox in a few minutes here. But the rest of the Derby field there for the Pennsylvania Derby, any comments on, say, like goal oriented? It feels like maybe he's just not a mile and an eighth kind of horse. Maybe that's all it is with him. Just needs, we think of all those stakes here at Churchill, for example, down the street that are at a mile and a 16th. He seems like that kind of horse, right? Like maybe a mile and a 16th, that kind of horse. Maybe he can bounce back in that. Anyone else stand out as maybe putting either in a very bad effort or a good effort from the Pennsylvania Derby?
I want to shout out Magnitude, because I need to make sure I give him a little praise after I know I've ripped him a couple times on this show in the past. Sure. He impressed me, because we were all looking at him as being the one-dimensional kind of speed horse, because he hadn't run well in the past when he wasn't on the lead. And he dug in there and he came running in the stretch to get that second spot. So I thought that was a big run from him. So he kind of changed my thought process on him a little bit. I still don't think he's necessarily at the top level that a lot of people thought he was going into the Travers, but I do think that he at least proved that he can be competitive in this division, especially maybe on the grade 2 or grade 3 scale. As far as goal oriented, I just think maybe he's a cup below the top of this division, at least at this point. And maybe he could be, if he shortened up or something like that, like you were saying, if he's not a mile and eighth horse, maybe he can be more competitive at the level at a shorter distance. But I just think he's maybe in that grade 2, grade 3 range. I just don't think he's on the same level as some of these top guys in this division are. But yeah, those were Magnitude was the one that kind of really stuck out to me. I also want to give a shout out to our Canterbury horse that won the Gallup Bob Stakes, Madhouse. He looked really, really good winning that race. And also a shout out to our Greenwood Cup winner, No Bien Nimal, from Brazil, making his second start in the U.S., 2 for 2. If you haven't checked out BloodHorse.com, I got to speak to the owner yesterday about bringing him here to the United States. And so make sure you check that out if you haven't already.
No Breeders' Cup win and ins on that Parks card, but I imagine we'll see many of the runners from that day at Del Mar once we get there late October, early November, of course, for the Breeders' Cup itself. Did anyone stand out on Saturday that you saw and you thought, man, I really hope they're headed to the Breeders' Cup?
They mentioned at No Bien Ni Mal that they were, if they got an invite to the Classic, that they'd take a shot. I think that would be interesting. See how he kind of stacks up in the Classic. They seem really high on this horse. Obviously, him coming from Brazil, you don't know what he's faced class-wise, and definitely an allowance race in the Greenwood Cup isn't probably the way you would expect a Breeders' Cup Classic horse to go, but I am interested to see how he would compete in that race. But I think Baeza, we're really starting to see him kind of put things together. It'd be interesting to see him in the Classic on his home track now. Right. He did seem like a different horse this weekend than he had been the previous times that I saw him. So I think he's finally kind of starting to figure it out, finally starting to mature.
Certainly one of those things we forget as we get to this point of the summer, that those 3-year-olds are still growing and they're still getting older. They're still maturing, as you point out, Sean, and really trying to figure things out. So hopefully, I think it's Baeza that stands out for sure as the one we want to see in the Classic. And, last year we had the 3-year-olds invade and in the Classic itself between Sierra Leone, Fierceness, and of course, Forever Young. We're going to have another great trio here, but also all 3 of those back potentially if they're healthy. By the time we get to Sean, I'm already try not to get too excited. I'll say that. How about that?
Get excited. We're getting close. We're just a little over a month away. We're getting there.
I know. You see, you don't have to live like me though. I got to coordinate with an Italian restaurant to do a seminar. These are things that I have to do behind the scenes. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll have that for you here at BloodHorse, of course. On the phone, though, is trainer Brad Cox. Joins us here on BloodHorse Monday. Appreciate him jumping on. Plenty of action going on around his barn in different spots around the country. But, Brad, I ask you every time we get together, where are you and how close are you to a horse?
In between Louisville and Lexington on the interstate. So right now, not that close.
I don't like it at all, Brad. That's how it goes. He's headed to Lexington. Good weekend for you. Plenty, frankly, to get into with you as far as that. We'll start with Friday, though. Just go a bit of the we'll just go in order here. But Disco Time, undefeated, gets it done in the St. Louis Derby. You had to be thrilled with that.
Yeah, we were expecting him to run well. Way up. A little bit of a difficult horse to find a spot for off the way off. And that race kind of jumped out a few weeks ago. And he was training the part. He really come back this summer and act like he was a good horse, or obviously showed he was a good horse last winter, and glad to see him return to the races in a big way.
How difficult is that when you have a horse that you've had such high hopes for early on and perform to it in the winter, when he has a couple of months off, he has that setback? How difficult is it to bring him back into that top form for the first start?
Well, I mean, it's from a trainer standpoint, it can be. It just, obviously we have to, prepare them and put a workload in front of them, and if they handle it and they're taking all the steps forward, you're running them with confidence. Sometimes they don't return quite as well, or they just not showing the talent that they showed before. And as long as they're sound, you go ahead and give them a start. But he acted as if he had improved. I mean, we liked him last fall when we debuted him and thought he was a good colt, and he didn't let us down. And over the last month or so leading up to that St. Louis Derby, I was really excited about running him. It was just about gradually getting him started and finding the right spot. Not a lot of options when you have a 3-year-old that's 3 for 3. And sometimes allowance conditions can be tricky with facing older seasoned horses, and we're just looking for a spot that made sense. And I think that one worked out for him.
Trainer Brad Cox with us. Did he show you enough that you'll try him in, say, a Clark or something like that later in the fall?
I think, yeah. I mean, look, he come back with a pretty good number. I haven't got all the figures back on him yet, but yeah, he went forward. Obviously, you can kind of say it's the first start of his 3-year-old season, really.
Sure.
Right. With the breaks since January. But yeah, I think he's a real horse. And I'm hoping that, he can, be competitive in grade ones down the road. And, the Clark is definitely a race that we could look at. The Fayette at Lexington, once again, we're gonna have to start facing olders. And then those are not races that he has to win, but we just want to continue to see him move forward and be competitive. Obviously, when we have to face older horses next time.
Another one you had over the weekend, and Brad, I appreciate how open you are about talking about, getting confidence into your horses, getting them a run where maybe they get back to doing what they do best. We saw that with Immersive in the Seneca overnight there at Churchill Downs. You were there on Saturday for that one. As brought my son, we watched that one together, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
But her rally in the stretch, I was so happy to see that, for your operation, just to see her fight back, get that kind of finish. Do you think this was a good step forward for her? What's the next step for her in the next race?
It was a step forward. Obviously, we didn't get the performance we were looking for at Saratoga. The first run off the layoff wasn't that disappointing to me. I thought she ran well. She was narrowly defeated, galloped out well. The last run, I don't know. That's a head scratcher. This 3-year-old filly division, when you look at it as a whole, I mean, it's kind of like they've all taken turns beating each other to begin with. So, but look, I was proud of the effort the other day. She's trained well all year. If she hadn't, we wouldn't be running her, period. But she's continued to work well like she had as a 2-year-old. And I'm not certain where we'll go, maybe like a Fall City or something later in the year, or later in the fall there at Churchill. But, for the time being, I think, we'll let her, another start or two this year, and then see if we want to campaign her at the age of 5.
Well, you mentioned that 3-year-old filly division. You had good cheer in the Cotillion this weekend. I know that didn't go to plan. What you were hoping for. What can you just tell us about how she came out of that race and what could be next for her?
Yeah, she came out of it good. She went back to Churchill. Happy with her from a soundness standpoint. And, look, I think she was maybe just a touch close to a hot pace or a quick enough pace, and she just didn't really finish up. So, I'm not certain. We'll talk it over with the Good Often team over the next couple of days and kind of come up with a plan. She's had a long run now. She's never been stopped on. So, she could do a break. But, once again, we'll find out more over the next few days.
Speaking of 3-year-old fillies in that division, Margie's Intention won the Black-Eyed Susan this year. You're going to enter her this Friday in the Beldame. What went into that decision-making process, and what do you expect from her on Friday?
She's training really well. I do think she needs to get a little quicker on her numbers to be competitive with that. I mean, listen, I think she's training well enough. She's going to be competitive, but I think if we want to win, we got to take a step forward. I think she got a lot out of her last race, going 1.25 miles. She'd been freshened up leading up to that race. And I do think she was training well leading up to the Alabama, but I think she's trained better since the Alabama. So I do think she's going to move forward, and she'll need to. Obviously, this is going to be facing older horses. And, I think she's going to need a setup as well. I think we need to have somebody in the race that can kind of put a little pressure on Randomize. If not, it's going to be tough to get by her at any point in the race.
This weekend, Churchill Downs, you also have Hit Show coming back here off of his win out at Mountaineer, the Dubai World Cup winner from this year. When you look at this field, he's going up against, Mystic Dan, Disarm, Rattle and Roll, a couple of good horses. Just how do you think that he fits in this field, and how is he coming into it?
Well, he fits. He won the race last year, and I think this horse, he's tough. He just keeps springing it every time you lead him over there. Never disappoints. There's been some races where obviously he doesn't win or run second, but he always tries hard. So looking forward to getting him back in graded state company. He's trained very well there at Churchill. Loves it there, and hopefully he gets a good trip and he can finish up well.
We saw him in the Stephen Foster over the summer. You decided to want him in more listed stakes. Was that a bit like Immersive, just trying to get some of that confidence back in him?
For sure. Yeah, no doubt about it. It was just a spot to kind of fill the calendar, and it was kind of the plan to, look, this path we're on now is the path that we took to get to the Dubai World Cup last year. So that's the ultimate goal, is to try to get back to Dubai. I'm not certain he'll hit all those spots between now and then. I'm not certain he'd run into Fayette, the Clark, and then Louisiana, and then Santa Anita. But, we're just trying to replicate some of the things we did last year with him. Hopefully it'll lead to him having, at some point, we might give him a little bit of a break at some point. Hopefully have him ready for Dubai next March.
You mentioned his consistency. He's 10 for 20 lifetime. That's very consistent, about as consistent as you could come there. He always shows up. Would you look at, if he ran well enough here, do you look at the Breeders' Cup Classic at all? Or are you kind of set on that Kentucky schedule looking toward the Dubai World Cup?
I think it would just depend on how he won the Lucas Classic and who all showed up in the Breeders' Cup Classic. I think we have a pretty good idea who's going to show up. But, a lot of things can happen over the next 5-6 weeks before the Breeders' Cup. So, I wouldn't say it's a total no. We just kind of have to see how things go Saturday and, who's doing what, who's going where.
Trainer Brad Cox with us here on BloodHorse Monday. Louie, Rabaut, Sean Collins hanging out with you. Another one in your barn that I wanted to ask about is First Mission. He's been steadily on the work tab here. We saw him most recently work on the 12th of September. What's next for him, or is there any chance we see him coming up?
Yeah, he's entered in the Goodwood on set. We entered this morning, actually, so I doubt it's come out yet, but he's been entered in the Goodwood for Saturday at Santa Anita. Going 1.8 miles there. It's a grade 1. That's the biggest draw with it for us. Obviously, he's a multiple graded stake winner, and we need to get a grade 1 under him. Obviously, I think he does have a spot in the stallion barn there at Darley, but being a grade 1 winner would definitely help his value. So planning on that this coming Saturday, Santa Anita with him.
It's also a Breeders' Cup Classic win and in. Would he be able to stay out there in your estimation if he does win?
We'll figure it out some way. Probably be a little tough. Yeah, exactly. It'd probably be a little tough, but we'll work it out. We'll figure out how to keep him out there if that's. I hope that's the case. I really do.
Yeah, right. That'd be a good problem. Yeah.
Well, another horse who has recently returned to training out at, I believe, at Windstars, where he is right now, is Tappan Street, who this year can claim to be the only horse to finish the sovereignty. What do you know about him coming back right now, and just how excited are you to get him back in the barn?
Super excited. I'm he's obviously a a grade one winner, grade one talent, and thought that, but that pretty much all last winter leading up to the Florida Derby that, he could, be a grade one horse, and he proved it in the Florida Derby. He's a good colt. I watched him work at WinStar a couple weeks ago, and then he worked again the other day and saw a video of it, and he's moving really well. He's a big, strong, powerful horse with a great mind, and excited about getting him back. I think he's going to come back to us here at Keeneland the first part of October, and then we'll take him down to Payson and kind of let him, find his way. And no schedule in regards to racing quite yet, but excited about getting him back into the barn and hopefully have a big year with him in 2026.
You have Nash in the Vosburg, another Breeders' Cup winning in for that dirt sprint. Is he, and you keep, moving him up into this graded stakes company. He hasn't quite clicked in one of those races. We've seen him win at the black type level. Does this feel more to you like a matter of time with him, or is there, just some, what do you feel about Nash at this point?
Yeah, he's always been a little bit of we kind of thought his bar, I'm still waiting for him to kind of step forward. We have figured out, I think, this year in 2025 that he's a one-turn horse, or he's best at one turn. I think his figures show that. I thought he was a Derby horse to start his 2/3-year-old season, but look, he's a horse that I think you got to get the right trip, and I'm hoping that the 7/8 will something that he likes doing, and he probably needs to get a little bit of a setup. Didn't work out well last time there at Saratoga, but he's trained well leading up to this one at Aqueduct.
All right.
All right. Well, there you go. He's trainer Brad Cox. He's driving to Keeneland. What are you doing at Keeneland? What's going on with Brad Cox? I don't like Keeneland Lexington. This isn't good. I don't like this.
Actually driving over here to play golf.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Withdrawn. I like that a lot. Never mind. Okay, good. All right. What's the Brad Cox handicap at this point? How bad are you?
Well, I'll tell you, it says it's 16, but that's not.
Oh.
That's not accurate. That is not accurate at all. As much golf, I haven't played very much golf at all this year, and it's probably might be able to double that 16 to 32. It's pretty bad right now.
Keep it under 100, Brad. You understand me? Yeah. You get it done. You keep it under 100. All right. There's other people on that golf course. All right. He's Brad.
That's right.
He's got 100 horses running this weekend. We'll talk to you next time, Brad. We appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
No problem. There you go. Brad Cox here with us on BloodHorse Monday. Sean, there you go. Lots of I think of this as, I saw a stat the other day. I forget where I saw it. I apologize. But essentially, Brad Cox and graded stakes at Churchill Downs in September. Just get out of the way. It's essentially that was essentially the stat. Get out of the way. And so Immersive, obviously not a graded stakes, but certainly gets that started for him last weekend. Bunch of interesting runners. I guess we get to break the news. That First Mission will, in fact, run in the Goodwood. There was some speculation about that, but of course entered this morning in the grade one out there. One of the things I like about talking to Brad Cox is he says things like, it's the grade one that matters the most to us. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for just telling us what your motivation is here. It's not money, it's graded stakes. We know where he's going to stand at stud. We know about this. Let's go get the grade one. I appreciate that kind of honesty as well. It's interesting to hear trainers talk, and I love this about what you and I get to do, Sean, about other people's horses, right? And he talks about that 3-year-old filly division. It's interesting to hear him say essentially what you said earlier in the show, which is whoever shows up that Saturday is going to win the race. It's been a fun division for that reason.
Yes, I know. It is fun. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times when people see these horses kind of beat each other all the time, we end up hearing in the comments of like, oh, this was a weak crop or something like that. But I think this is a pretty good group of 3-year-old fillies, and it's been fun watching them, and it keeps it exciting each race. That you look at the flip side of it with the 3-year-old colts. If you see Sovereignty in the race, you know he's going to win. Versus, in the Cotillion this weekend, you didn't know which of those 3 grade 1 winners was going to end up winning, and then none of them did. None of them even hit the board. And so it keeps the excitement going when you're watching these races, see which one of them is gonna be there on that day, which one of them is going to put it all together on that day. But it's left a question mark on this division for sure. I'm glad to hear good cheer came out of the race in good shape. Immersive is one who, looking forward, could potentially jump back into this division and be a factor as well as these fillies turn 4 next year. Right. So it's definitely interesting to see kind of where this is going to shake out with these horses.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear the talk about the 3-year-old class, especially on the filly side, of course, because Immersive's a daughter of Nyquist, a Bernardini mare. She's winning listed stakes. Like how good this class is. Yeah, I'm with you, buddy. I don't want to hear about how this is a down year for this class just because there's a bunch of horses, that on any given Saturday, any of them can win. No, it's okay. It's just a deep class this year amongst a 3-year-old filly. So big fan of that. I am very interested to hear, Brad talk about the path with Hit Show and just the assumption, hey, we're trying to go back to Dubai with this horse. We know what we want to do. And it's interesting because the Goodwood is one of these races, Sean, that I think about. We'll preview it toward the end of the show, but just where it is on the calendar, right? Because in Southern California for years, the big cap was the race, right? The Santa Anita handicap, it was the race. Now it's the Pacific Classic. That's a month before this race, but this race is now on the same day as the Woodward and all these other races that are going on. The Lucas Classic, of course, here at Churchill Downs across the street. And it's just interesting to watch the calendar and how these things ebb and flow in the sport, especially as we move to a model, and Frank's talked about this on the show a lot, where we're shooting for big days in horse racing rather than, a stakes a day. Monmouth still has the thing where there's stakes on every card and, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that kind of, so many places are going away from that. I think the only 2 stakes yesterday were at Albuquerque and one at Woodbine in North America. That's it. Otherwise, people are condensing these to big race days, and we're seeing that over and over again. They're starting to overlap, and so this Saturday, we'll see some of that, of course, with both the Lucas Classic and the Goodwood out west. But thanks to trainer Brad Cox joining us here on BloodHorse Monday. Another man who's going to join us here on the show is Frank Angst from BloodHorse and BloodHorse.com. Of course, wanted to get an update on the sale. Frank, are you jealous that Brad Cox is going golfing?
I'm a terrible golfer.
I
mean, my excuse is if I'm watching 5 hours of horse racing every Saturday and then trying to work, I mean, they're both kind of a long haul game. It's not, the races are over in 2 minutes, but it's an all day affair, and golf takes quite a bit of time as well. That's my excuse anyway.
That's a good idea. I took my
in my height. I don't see a whole lot of 6'5" golfers tooling around.
It's fair enough.
Those are my 2 excuses. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have figured out a way to overcome both of those, but that's my line anyway.
As the short guy on the show, I'm probably also the best golfer. So there you go. Frank, we are smashing records at Keeneland with this sale. It continues a trend throughout the industry of these sales, just breaking records year after year. Now, as inflation happens and years go on, we're supposed to break records, frankly. But to get halfway through the sale and to have a new record gross at the Keeneland sale in September, Frank, can you remember something like this on the sales side in your career?
No, I mean, it really went to another level. They've been, I think this is the 3rd year in the last 4 that they've set a record, but even as a record, this was just another level. I mean, they sold about not quite 200 more horses this year, but those horses brought more than $100 million extra. I mean, it went from $428 million and change last year to $531 million and change this year. So that's up, I think it's almost a quarter, 25%. I had 24%. So basically a quarter. That's quite impressive. And the good news, I mean, we talked about kind of the beginning of the sale last week, that the good news that for this week is, as it wrapped up on Saturday, is the good numbers continued all the way through the end, all the way through 12 sessions. Every single session's average was up from last year. So no matter what level that you were selling your horse, you got a decent price on average. And the median was up for nearly every session of the entire sale. So it really showed strength throughout. A median's a good number that you can't just say, right, oh, there was some big horse that maybe should have been higher up in the book and just sold for a big number that brought it. No, it was really a consistency throughout that we saw. So I think we're about 2/3 of the way of the yearlings that'll probably be sold this year, and it's on a record pace for sure. And we've seen some positive, the New York bred sale did well after the Saratoga sale. So that's positives there for a regional type sale. So as we get into some more of those and wrap up the yearling season, it's really it's really looking good. I mean, you have to be optimistic to buy a yearling. I mean, you're
good point, frankly. Yes.
Yeah. It's obviously you're happy about the way things are trending now, but you're also sort of predicting, hey, when I get to race this horse in a year or pinhook this horse in a year, I'm confident that things are still going to be going well. So it's really Keeneland, because of the sheer numbers and so many prominent horses offered. It's really the bellwether for everything, and you couldn't see more positive numbers. That's for sure.
In the sale itself, we're seeing not this time Colts getting to nearly $1 million, that sort of thing. Has any individual sire stood out to you as, oh boy, we're starting to pay a lot more for that than we did before?
Yeah, it's those top rung stallions.
Amazing. Isn't it?
They keep proving it. They keep showing that that they're doing it over and over on the track, which is what you want. I mean, the track is where horses prove themselves. The track is the ultimate barometer for how stallions are doing. And I just think you can throw a number of them into that basket. The Not This Time, Into Mischief, the Gun Runners, Curlins. I mean, they keep doing it over and over. That gives buyers an amount of confidence. And the other good, rightfully so, occasionally we'll field a call that says, hey, I wish prices would stay the same or go down. But, ultimately, if you have horses and you're seeing numbers like this in the sale, it means the horses that you have are going up in value too. So
right.
I understand that sentiment, but I think ultimately you hope for steady growth, and this shows it. It's tough to keep up with inflation these days. So just that alone is a positive for sure.
I did radio with Kentucky legend Dan Issel for a couple of years, and I texted him the other day and said, boy, you won't be coming to a Keeneland sale for a while. He said, oh, if I'm selling, I'm coming. So there's both sides, right? It really is. It's that there's incentive to buy because of purses and different things, within the Kentucky program. For example, you mentioned the New York program with that Fasig-Tipton sale up at Saratoga as well, going strong. Those states that have those built-in programs go well. You talked with Greg Justice, frankly, if we're going smaller scale with Indiana. But yeah, there's multiple sides to this. It's not just people spending money; it's people that are able to breed and sell as well.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what you're doing, this has to give you all kinds of confidence. Just seeing these types of numbers, it points to that success can be had, that you can make a go at it. What I'm waiting for next is this to spur a little bit more breeding. I mean, we keep seeing small percentage declines from year to year in the number of horses produced, but boy, at some point you would think this would give people the confidence to add to that and turn that around as well. Tony Lacey at the end of the sale credited the strong purses in Kentucky and beyond, favorable tax legislation. I know the NTRA and other leadership organizations in the industry worked hard to get the 100% bonus depreciation, and I think that really goes into the planning when you're planning things out. The industry's had that for a while, but it was always temporary. So it came up for vote. Every time it came up for vote, everybody had to make sure it got passed again. This is permanent, so you can count on it a little bit more. Now somebody would have to make the effort to actually reverse it, which it's hard to get anything changed in Washington. So that's a good thing. We want that in place. And you can count on that and plan going forward. Just growing confidence in the sport he mentioned, I think that's directly tied to HISA, and having a national oversight of our medication and safety is so important. And then also just how much exposure the sport's getting on television.
Yeah.
The New York Times had a story recently that horse racing is drawing better than NBA games and NHL playoff games. I mean, people are paying attention. It's getting good ratings, and people are liking what they're seeing. There's more hours on it, for the people watching day to day. That there's terrific coverage on FanDuel. There's terrific coverage of NYRA on the Fox channels. So just a lot of positives right now, and it certainly helps that we have a terrific crop of older dirt horses racing that people got familiar with last year, and now we have these 3-year-olds that came along. That the top 3, especially, it's real. A lot of things have come together to make this happen.
Frank Angst with us, BloodHorse.com, for everything that Frank works on the website, of course, and of course the daily, the magazine, all the good things he works on. I wanted to bring up, and it was buried at the bottom of the article at BloodHorse.com, but a Virginia bred filly led the sixth session, and as far as price, and Frank, this is I kind of wanted to support your point with this, that as these states have these good incentives and different things, we need to see more horses filling those spots, because if you're going to be Virginia certified and get that money, we hear these stories. Speaking of Greg Justice, people that'll breed with Greg in Indiana move their horses to Virginia to be certified in Virginia. They can take advantage of both of those jurisdictions, then run in Kentucky if you want to, right? Why not? It's right there anyway. It's interesting seeing a Virginia bred on that list, but it's a reminder too, game's always kind of changing. Virginia becoming a player, frankly.
Yeah, find that next secretariat. But in all seriousness, Virginia is very much in position to do what Kentucky's done with the historical horse racing, and Churchill Downs Incorporated has made a big commitment there, and some good ideas have followed, because a lot of the Maryland breds can get Virginia certified.
Yep.
So it's really nice to see those two states cooperate and try to lift the entire region, the entire Mid-Atlantic region, instead of compete and fight against one another, which they haven't really done that. But it's really good to see them come together even more and make for a great circuit and great opportunities for the horsemen who race there and the breeders who breed there.
Yeah, there was some pushback from the Maryland folks about shutting down for the Virginia time, and then their horses went and won those races. There's a little less complaining about it, because the money's the money for sure. But Frank Angst with us. What are we working on for the magazine, my friend?
The magazine should be out tomorrow in terms of the virtual edition, and then it'll get mailed out. It's a really exciting issue. We've touched on some of those, some of the main stories in there. With James Gazelle, I took a look at Mill Ridge Farm just as an economic driver of the entire region. Not that they're the only one, but we thought we would really concentrate on one farm and then apply that to the many farms in the region, just so you can see how much economic impact all of these farms and breeding operations mean for an area like Central Kentucky and your Ocala's of the world. And it is a big economic driver, So we thought that would be a fun way of pointing that out. Bob Ehald has looked at the Champagne Stakes as a stallion-making race. My favorite distance in racing is the one-turn mile, and I think that has a lot to do with it. You have these precocious 2-year-olds and speedy 2-year-olds and talented 2-year-olds, but when they get to that one-turn mile, you really start to separate some things, and I think that's why we've seen some of the influential stallions. It goes way back, but just recent years, Scat Daddy and Uncle Mo have been huge, and Good Magic, who finished second in the race, has gone on and done very well. So that'll be coming up. So before you watch the race, you can read the story and have some understanding of what might be on the line this year.
It's also the Champagne. You're the past winners: Chancer McPatrick, Timberlake, Blazing Sevens, Jack Christopher, Jackie's Word, Tis the Law, Complexity, Forense Fire, Practical Joke, Daredevil's on this list, Shanghai Bobby, Union Rags, etc. Uncle Mo, of course, right before them. So yeah, not a bad list there, Frank, for sure.
Yeah, a few good ones on that list, right?
Works out okay, yeah. Hard to predict 2 to 3, but that one's a pretty good
prediction. Took a look at the Claiming Crown as well, and running a Jay Huffdy. Jay recently wrapped up a book on the Oak Tree Racing Association.
Yeah.
And we're running an excerpt from there, and Jay, of course, is as good as they come. So that it's a terrific historical look at the Oak Tree Racing Association, which is kind of a unique setup that they had. And if you like it, you can buy the book.
And back to Santa Anita this Saturday. Speaking of oak trees,
we're really the next 3 weekends are your final blast before the Breeders' Cup, and I especially like watching the 2-year-old races in these. Unfortunately, I don't know that we'll see all the dirt horses we would like to see in these weekends, but leave that for another day. A lot of these horses are training up, but still, we're going to see a lot of quality 2-year-olds and a lot of quality turf racing, especially to be on the lookout for the next 3 weekends.
BloodHorse.com for everything Frank is working on there. Of course, click on the Daily tab at the top left of the homepage. Get that free email to your inbox every morning. Start your day with BloodHorse every single day. Frank, we appreciate you. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Sounds good.
There you go. No problem, Frank Angst. Selling Virginia breds, Sean. It is interesting to watch the changes going on, but as Frank points out, as those prices go up, it means that there's a group of people that are they're bullish, frankly, right? And so in a time when it is very easy, especially if you go to a horse racing Twitter, which I suggest to no one, you can be pretty negative about the sport, but frankly, the economic indicators seem to be different in many parts, and so hopefully, like Frank said, that full crop up a little bit. Breed some of these horses. Brad Cox has a horse in for $148,000 in a non-2 this weekend. Breed your horses, people. There's money out there. Please God,
That's really the last piece that we're missing here is just getting that full crop up, because there's a lot more attention on the sport right now, as Frank mentioned, with the amount of views that the sport is getting. There's a lot of interest in the ownership side right now, not just from these guys that are paying all this money at the sale, but there's also all that interest in kind of your micro share groups and your syndicates. A lot of those, more and more of those are popping up all over the place, and so there's a lot of interest of people who don't know how to get involved in the game, wanting to get involved in the game, and going towards those groups right now. And so there's a lot of excitement within the industry right now, and definitely, as Frank mentioned, when you have the athletes that we have this year in both the older division and the 3-year-old division, that's going to help out a lot. But that's kind of, we just need it to start transitioning into more people choosing to breed their horses. That's the next step. If we can get that step, I think future of racing is looking very, very bright.
I got multiple DMs. Hey, can you talk about the Princess Rooney on your shows? I own part of a horse in the Princess Rooney. By the way, that's my racehorse, right? It's one of those syndicates that you mentioned, but that was multiple people asking me if I could go ahead and handicap a race at Gulfstream Park in September. No, but yes, that was the question. Like, that was in my direct messages. How about that? But
we'll go ahead and talk about the Princess Rooney then.
By the way, if you didn't watch it over the weekend, spectacular race. Your winner, of course, there at Gulfstream Park was Hall and Ice. That is a winning in for the Breeders' Cup. And so Hall and Ice, congratulations. You're off to Del Mar. Did I do that right? Was that good?
I would clip that and put it on a commercial.
Congratulations.
You say that. I do want to give a shout out to Hall and Ice, because back when I was at I guess it was Arkansas Derby weekend. I believe that weekend was the day that she became the Arkansas's leading money earner on the female side.
Okay.
Now that you mentioned her winning, I've got to see how close she's getting to the all-time record there in Arkansas. But we just talked about some of these state bred programs. Think of all the money that Arkansas is now offering in their races, and then you got a filly like this, who's being able to compete on the graded stakes level, winning Breeders' Cup winning year in races, and she's earning money that Arkansas breds had never earned before. And so right there is kind of proof in the pudding on what some of the purse money and some of these other changes that are happening in the industry, some of the benefits that can come from it.
Looking forward to the weekend, the Breeders' Cup wins and in, as Frank mentioned. We have multiple of them this weekend. 2 of them at Santa Anita, 1 of them at Aqueduct as part of that Belmont at Aqueduct meet, which is the Vosburg. On Saturday, it's a sprint for the dirt. We asked Brad about it, of course, as he will have Nash in that race. But we get to see, very likely at least, I don't have the full probables list in front of me, but a Scotland or a Baby Yoda, maybe, perhaps a Super Chow, Crazy Mason. Lots of really, really nice horses here. Frankly, Sean, that's the kind of race that if we get a good winner out of it, I'll be watching them in the Breeders' Cup for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Those are the kind of horses that you could definitely see potentially taking that next step. Baby Yoda is always the one that he always seems to love Saratoga, and we'll see what he can do here. But it looks like a very competitive race for sure. I guess there's still a question whether or not Bookham Dano was going to end up going out to the sprint. We saw Ben Tornado last week, who I really, really, really like in this division as well. But these are going to be some of those horses where that, can maybe, if you're looking for someone to play underneath those guys, or if you're expecting those two to not run their race on that day, you could be looking at potentially one of these horses fitting that spot for you, depending on how they run this weekend. I believe Straight No Chaser, last year's Breeders' Cup Sprint winner, I believe is supposed to be coming back. Is it next week? Not this upcoming weekend, but next weekend for the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. And so the Sprint division has a couple of interesting candidates in it this year for sure.
Yeah, it should be a fun one by the time we get to Del Mar itself. Of course, the Vosburg will be, like I said, at Aqueduct out west. We will have the City of Hope Mile. It's a grade 2. I'm hopeful Johannes will be in this one here, Sean, because it's a horse who took a bunch of time off. They brought him back in the 4-star Dave. Good luck with that, shipping across the country, running in that kind of company. It's always one of the very best mile races on the turf in North America every year. But in the Goodwood itself, which of course is a winning in for the Breeders' Cup Classic, they're in such a tough spot here as far as timing after the Pacific Classic and ahead of the Breeders' Cup. And do you go to the Woodward? Do you stay in Kentucky for the Lucas? Because if you win the Lucas, sure, you don't get paid to be in the Breeders' Cup, but then you didn't have to ship like Brad Cox is about to ship First Mission and such, all the things, right? And so I know there's a lot going on here, but of the probables here, man, because look, you're going to get all the West Coast horses, that we would expect, the Privmans of the world, the Dr. Venkmans, probably Midnight Mammoth, even out of the Craig DeLoss barn, maybe a full Serrano from the Sadler barn. But First Mission, man, I don't hate the ship here. I think it makes a lot of sense, frankly.
It does make a lot of sense. This is a spot they've been trying to get that grade 1 all year, and even last year too. Pretty much any interview with them in the winner's circle after they've won a grade 2, comments are always, we want to get a grade 1 on this horse. I think this is probably the right spot for it when you look at some of these other monsters that are in this division. And obviously First Mission has shown he can run with them. He just hasn't gotten his head down first yet in one of these races at the grade 1 level. But you look at Sierra Leone, you look at Fierceness, you look at those guys that are on the East Coast or occasionally going out to the West Coast in Fierceness's case. But you look at some of those guys over there on the East Coast, why not take the shot going out west? And also, if it works out, then you don't have to worry about, you can kind of let him sit and get acclimated to California. Maybe that helps you out a little bit more when you're looking at the Breeders' Cup going forward. I like this move for him. I think this is really, really interesting. And even if he doesn't win, like say he runs a good second or a good third and they decide to leave him out there for the Breeders' Cup, I like that a lot going into the Breeders' Cup, kind of giving him that month to kind of acclimate to what Southern California is.
It's interesting too, because of the injury to Tappan Street, this would be Brad Cox's best chance to have a classic runner, right? And that's pretty incredible to say, since there are 6 very good colts that are going to run in the Breeders' Cup, but all 6 of them are trained by other people. It's a pretty remarkable thing to say, frankly, at this point in history with trainer Brad Cox. And it is, I like this ship a lot. I don't know that he wins, but I think this is a very wise group for them to land in. Obviously, they were waiting until the last moment today to figure out what the field is going to look like for that one, but obviously a good one as far as the win and in for the Breeders' Cup Classic in the grade 1 Goodwood there out at Santa Anita. Well, that'll wrap it up for us here on BloodHorse Monday for this 22nd of September edition of the program. Sean, when are you back in Kentucky, my friend?
I will be back in Kentucky. I'll be driving back tomorrow. So I will be back in Kentucky for the Lucas Classic. Also, the Lucas Classic, I'm not sure if you can hear those birds chirping behind me.
No, not at all.
Okay. But the Lucas Classic this weekend is going to be a good race. Mystic Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner, is going to win that race. I just want to give a thoughts and prayers to Brian Hernandez Jr., his regular rider, who was in a bad fall yesterday at Churchill. And from what I hear, it sounds like he's doing all right now, but he's right in the ICU. So, Brian, if you're watching this, just our thoughts and prayers are with you. We're wishing you a speedy recovery, and hopefully you'll be back in the saddle soon.
One of the easiest guys to root for in horse racing, always makes himself available to those of us who do what you and I do, Sean, as well. And so I'm with you. And also just, you don't want to lose the best competitors in your sport either, right? And so not having Brian on the circuit would be a net negative. Like we didn't have Tyler for a couple months. It was a net negative for the sport. So hopefully Brian back in the saddle soon. Like you said, our friend Jenny Reese kind of breaking right as we went on to record this, that it looks like Brian's going to be okay after Tommy Drury went to visit him in the hospital to make sure he was all right. But yeah, reminder, it's a dangerous sport that we cover from time to time. And so glad that Brian's going to be okay and able to move on from that accident. Well, for Sean, I'm Louie. At the bottom of the screen right now, you see that QR code for the magazine. Get in right now. You can even, I've never done this before, but I'm going to do this right now. If you've never had a stallion registry sent to your house, I think you're missing out, and I think you would enjoy reading it a lot more than you think you would. I think it would bring up a lot of nostalgia. I think you'll see a bunch of horses. I remember him. I remember that horse running. I remember that race, that kind of thing. It can be included as part of your annual membership with a BloodHorse magazine, your annual subscription with them. So get in right now, bloodhorse.com. Click on the magazine tab at the top of the page, or use the QR code if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. For Sean, for Frank, for Trader Brad Cox, my name's Louie Rabaut. Thanks for hanging out with us on another edition of the program. Plenty to recap when we get back together next week. And of course, we'll be one more week closer to the Breeders' Cup as well. Have a good one. The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.